Hello everyone, welcome to Let's Play Densetsu no Starfy. In the last part, we continued on through a post-game, getting a level or two done in the process, and now it's time for us to head for our next treasure chest here in the Sea of Ice. We have to go to the far end of the right pathway from the section where we had to look for the Gelato Sisters, and now we got a hot air balloon segment. The hot air balloon, in some regards, is actually kind of the hardest to control of the vehicles in a way I haven't really brought up yet. Because we only really ran into it, I think, maybe once or twice during the main campaign. The thing with it is, when you hold the button, which the jump button more precisely, the A button, you do ascend, but you ascend at a very particular acceleration click that feels a little hard to use in some cases. Because, like, just two well-placed A button presses can send you flying up high, whereas mashing the button will basically give you no air whatsoever. And it doesn't quite feel right to me. I can't exactly explain why, because control already is one of those harder things to explain when someone themselves doesn't have the controller in their hand. But especially the balloon just feels like it's one of the weirdest things in this game control-wise. It's like the only time the game doesn't really feel very sharp, because overall, this game feels fantastic to control. Everything's very responsive and quick. And hey, we got another character on our postcard. Hey, Brushley, how you doing down there? So next up, our next destination is actually the mini-game for the Sea of Ice, as we got some stuff to do over here. Hi there, feel like a round of ball hockey? If you beat me, I'll give you a prize, and it's time for us to do this on normal mode. Like I mentioned in the main campaign, this is already one of my least favorite mini-games in the game, but on normal and hard mode above, the accuracy this AI has for bouncing your stuff back at you is good, but it's also super inconsistent because, again, if you just get the right bounce off to the left or right, they sometimes just will not catch up to it in a way that doesn't feel right. Amazing, you're really good. By the way, have you heard this rumor? Somewhere in the Sea of Ice, there's someone who will give you a costume. With that on, you can frighten enemies and lower their guard. Okay, take these pearls. Mind you, what also helps is memory serves. Every time I come back in the level moving forward to do the later difficulties, I'm also doing this minigame, at least on hard mode each time. The reason I usually do exclusively hard mode on future revisits of stages if I have to go past where the minigame is, usually comes down to you get the best pearls for your time investment reward through that, and in some cases you can get some pearls in the rooms where the new enemies that are for the scrapbook are beyond them as well. So doing hard mode kind of has that two-tiered effect where, okay, you get the base reward, but then there's some extra pearls after the fact. Wow, that was awesome. Playing with you sure is fun. To show my appreciation, I'll lead you to a secret place. And there's a creature you won't find anywhere else. Add it to your picture book. Also, I have some pearls. So, admittedly, the enemy that's exclusive to beating the hard mode of the minigame in this stage is actually one of the most annoying to fight. Not because killing them is hard, no, these little baby seal things, I guess, are actually very quick enemies to take out. It's the fact that this room is very annoying to get out of, because you have to fall down to the left and then go all the way back up to the right and do kind of precise dash jumps to get from platform to platform here because of the ice physics and the momentum being a little wacky. It doesn't take too long, it's just kind of annoying to traverse through. Even though I like to do hard mode on future revisits of this stage for pearls, I never actually go for these enemies because I guess if you wanted to try and get like a combo going for star pearls, you would probably have to make your way all the way to the top first without taking any of them out, which doesn't exactly feel great. On top of that, there's already a nearby room that's way better for doing that for star pearls. In fact, it's technically even in the same room because behind this sealed block is what I'm talking about. We have like, I think 9 penguins in a row here? Maybe more? If it's either 9 or 12. Oh, it's absolutely 12. Which means with optimal timing and making sure you don't miss anything, that's a full combo of about 40 star pearls, I think? 42, maybe? Math's not my strong suit. I'm technically an art student. I guess art graduate, more accurately. Next up, we need to head to the room where all the Colbys were. They're actually how you leave this room, by the way. If you talk to them, you just get sent back to where the monkeys were. Now, the treasure we're going for over here is in this door to the left here. This is a mole tank room, so there's also an enemy here you need to at least see or take out for your picture book. But on the far right of that room with the Colbys, there's another door we're going to need to enter. That is a vehicle section using the costume in specific. So for some reason you didn't get it yet in this level, go back and get it. Some of the mole tank sections do have, like, very few star pearls for me, so, like, in that case, I just went straight for the exit because it's not worth the time going around in a circle there. It really just depends on what the room itself is, whether or not I decide to go for everything in it or not. And hey, we're almost a third of the way done with the treasures. Actually, speaking of the costumes, something I believe I forgot to mention last time. An important thing when it comes to the costumes toolkit is, yes, you stun enemies by roaring, and you can only hit enemies that are technically in front of you with the roar. But a little technique you can use to help delay yourself when falling from some cases. When you roar, Starfy does pause in midair, so in the case you're trying to have an enemy go below you a certain way, or trying to avoid very specific spikes in some of these sections, you can actively use the roar as a jump buffer, essentially. Otherwise, as with a lot of these types of pathways, we're not here technically for the star pearls, we're more here actually for the enemies to get them in our encyclopedia, because these types of enemies do still count even if you can't actually defeat them. It's an interesting version of a bestiary, and I appreciate the bestiary in this game, if only because there's clearly some love put into it, just for the little lines of dialogue that Mo has, talking about any of the given entities you can have in there. But overall, it's not too major. At the same time, you don't need to worry about getting it for 100% at all. Also, at this point, I'm gonna, I think, start fast-forwarding through conversations that aren't directly Mo talking about the level design around us, because a lot of the hints that the other NPCs have are very minor. Well, of course, also not counting boss ones.
Boo-run! Looks like you found lots of treasure. Defeat me and I'll give you one more, but don't think I'm gonna let you win.
Bow Run's change in round 2 here is probably the most visually obvious. Now his little ads that you have to take out before he himself shows up are numbered, and you need to take them out in numerical order, 1 to 5, depending on how many rounds you're in order to actually make him spawn in and do his swipe from right to left or left to right. On top of that, he'll now usually have ads during his sweep left to right, to a point where it's sometimes actually very easy to completely miss him and take hits somewhere else. What's really kind of rough about this section, now I have to take them out in a certain order though, is because of how momentum works underwater with Starfy, it is kind of easy to overshoot your targets sometimes, or undershoot them and just hit the target next to them instead. Particularly if there's just 3 of them stacked up like that. You saw me do it a couple times there where I just skipped over number 2 and hit straight to number 3 because Starfy curved around in a specific way due to momentum. With that said, at the end of the day, still a pretty easy boss fight. The last hit here's a little rough because he does move pretty quickly, but not too much to worry about. Nothing in that level on a technical scale is that hard to do. It's just backtracking through that many times in order to get as many star pearls as I wanted to get from it makes that just take forever in a way that's not very fun, but that's mostly my fault to begin with, so So now that we're done at the Sea of Ice, it's time for us to head on over to our next level, so it's going to be time for the Deep Sea. And as you can see, we're doing pretty good on pearls. We're over halfway to our goal now. And we even got that little dude in there now. Look at him, he's so happy. So, similarly to the Sea of Ice, Deep Sea as a level in post-game is a bit of an effort to do things in, because you have to go through the same sections over and over again in order to get to a lot of the later treasure chests in a way that's not exactly very fun to do. What do you gotta say, Mo?
Stop by asking that big squid if he's seen any treasure.
So our first goal is to go all the way to the bottom and talk to him in his room, and he is actually in his room that we got back for him. The sea urchin is now actually right here, and he's lamenting the fact that the barrel wasn't really worth it. How you doing?
My room's nice and quiet, just how it should be. Huh? You're looking for something. It seems that's all you ever do. There's this place that only I know about. Perhaps I'll take you there. I actually discovered a rather beautiful sounding instrument there recently. If it's something you think you could use, feel free to take it. Want to check it out?
Yes, we do.
Let's get going then. Hopefully you find something.
So there's actually 2 things over there, and to get one, we need to dig through this wall over here and then down. to find the Tone of the Ocean again. It's much prettier than the Tone of Ocean Mozart has. You can now access sea gems from the extras menu on the stage select screen. We'll take a look at this next part, but by and large, getting the Tone of Ocean in this room gives you a full sound test of the game's music, which, overall, I do like this game's soundtrack a good bit. There's some really nice and relaxing pieces in here, so having a sound test, I like. Even in today's day and age, where like most game soundtracks are on some form of streaming platform or on YouTube directly, or especially released on albums now, I always still appreciate when a game has a sound test in the case I'm like actively gonna be distracted for a little bit so I can boot up some music while the game's still running over there and all that. I actually did that a good bit with the Scott Pilgrim game on my PS3 in like late middle school, early high school. Similarly, I did that, I have one distinct memory of, I think I may have talked about this in one of my Pokemon LPs, doing like extensive math homework while I was just kind of idling in the city with the grass gym leader in Pokemon Gen 4. And I won't lie, there's still part of me that wants to have that as a ringtone because I think it's perfect for that. That song's so good. Behind treasure chest number 1 is a sword. Oh my god. So moving forward, the rest of the treasure chests, by and large in this level, are located in the deeper portions of it. And in order to do that, we now need to go through those sets of doors in order to break those blocks, in order to push those yellow blocks, to get towards where we first met Mozart to go get the Tone of the Ocean for him in the main level. This is the part of the level that gets tedious to replay over and over again because you're going through the same rooms back and forth like 3 times. Now, if you haven't yet, this is the time you want to go grab the mole tank, of course, but also where the Tone of the Ocean once was is now a Blanco.
It's good you're here, Starfy. I have a really big secret I want to tell you. There's a place the only I know about. Surely something you're looking for is there. Want to go and see?
Sure.
Of course you do. All right, let's get going.
And now we're in a lava fall area. The lava in the background is an active hazard. Its flashing actually dictates when it will damage you. When it's like this and starting to warm up, it's completely fine. But the moment that its flashing gets brightest orange, it will damage you just by touching. So don't let that happen. Notably, when you get to this particular tile set in this level a couple times going for the treasure chest, we have another enemy that actively takes 2 shots. This little dragon guy who's just a little T-Rex with an extra skull on. The bats can be a little annoying as well in that they charge directly towards you when you get close enough to them, which is mostly annoying in these little tight corridors like right there. Other cases you run into them, you're going to be in just a place where like you're not going to be jumping into them, so you can just kind of stand still for a second and spin and not have to worry about it. Although, it's around here you can really start to see, by this point in the post-game, they're starting to really know that you understand platforming, so they do make you do a couple of tougher jumps, particularly by using the running jumps momentum to get that extra few tiles higher, and then curve backwards onto the platform above the one you were just on. So at least there's still a difficulty curve in the post-game, it's just you have to go through so much of the level design you've already been through several times in a row in a lot of cases in order to actually reach that. I guess in that regard, what I would prefer for a post-game like this is just, like, have a door at the start of any given level that you couldn't access, and then that leads to an entirely separate level that maybe has its own set pieces, or is just at least, like, a harder version of what we've already done.
There, my awesome brush challenge you to a duel. Beat me and we'll give you to a prize.
Oh boy, it's time for this minigame on normal and hard. The big differences in this, I believe, are for one thing the movement speed of Brushly themselves, but also the amount of blocks that spawn in and the positions of them completely change on the various difficulties. Like now we have 3 blocks instead of 2 back on easy mode, but because you can actively just remove Brushly as a threat, as long as you get good bounces and are good about bouncing Starfy in a way where he gets that high speed, it's not a lot to worry about.
Hey, that was pretty good. I'd be lying if I said otherwise. Oh yeah, I met this weird guy recently. He said something about exploring underground. If you explore around the deep sea, perhaps you'll run into him as well. That's all I know. Take these parts.
Pearls, not parts. And thus now it's time for hard mode, where once again I think the main differences are, for one thing, Brushly moves a little faster, but now we're gonna have to contend with 4 bricks you can break if you just hit Starfy hard enough. I think what makes this minigame just very easy to go through is, for one thing, if you just get 1 point and have moments like that happen where Brushly just gets comboed, you don't really need to worry about actually playing the minigame. You can just kind of coast through it, no problem. It's if Brushly gets a chance to move towards a lot of the trash bags, where this can potentially go down south, but even then, as you can see, I'm kind of in the head there. Whoa, what a battle! You're amazing! I'll show you a secret place. There's a rare creature for your picture book in there. And here's some pearls. So, the enemy for this particular minigame, if memory serves, is just a plant. I think it'll attack you if you let it stand there long enough, but I've never done that. So now we do need to head down the pits that led us towards where we got the Ultra Star Spin in order to get 2 treasure chests coming up here. But the treasure chests we're looking for are actually not over near where the Ultra Star Spin was. Instead, now when you go down the current pits, you're essentially led to a giant cart room that kind of reminds me of some of the transitional areas in the quicksand back in Meridia in Super Metroid. There are 2 doors in it. One lower near where you enter, and one higher up. Those 2 doors each lead to sections that have treasure chests. If you go all the way down in that current area, though, I believe you still get sent back over to where the Ultra Star Spin was. So in the case you want to go back there for some reason, you can. You could also just resist the current and actually go to that door directly instead of having to come all the way over here to do that, but neat. This is probably one of the harder magic set sections, if only because now you not only have to contend with the literal enemies coming towards you, but the hazards aren't spikes, they're the actual lava pits, so you need to proceed forward with a little bit of timing. Or you could just use the invisibility ability by using the A button on these sections and just completely ignore them. But for some reason, I just don't like using that. I'm not sure if it's like I don't like the sound effect as much, or it just doesn't feel as satisfying to do as holding down the B button for a few moments at a time. I don't know. Here's our next treasure, and what do we got in this one? It's a spade? It's probably a spade. Also, I show it off a few times by complete accident because I'm usually like looking at my notes, but the song that plays when you actually get a new treasure chest after the opening jingle happens is a very nice, relaxing piece. There's a lot of those in this soundtrack, as I already said. So now we're back here in the room with the currents. There's also a new enemy in here, but we want to aim for this door. And of course, it's another vehicle section. This is actually one of the harder catfish boat segments, if only because of 2 reasons. For one thing, there's a lot of sections of the poison water that's essentially only 1 tile wide, so you might need to like just do short hops and keep yourself scrolling to the left so you can wait for the screen to scroll more to the right. But also there's those skeleton fish enemies that are there to be traps if you try to lead a jump way too early. I had several times in practice for this run where I just completely messed this section up and nearly died doing it. I forget if I mentioned this or not. If you actually take a hit during any of the vehicle segments, it's not an instant kill, you just take 1 shot of damage, but you have to start the entire room over again, so Also, seeing 2 chests in the same room reminds me of something. I forget if I actually talked about this already or not in the post-game. Something I think could have made this a little more, not interesting to play, but at least more streamlined, would have been if, during the treasure hunting segment, if they treated the levels more like mini Metroid areas, where you can get as many treasure chests as you can on 1 visit, as long as you know where to go for them, unless they're specifically like vehicle-based ones where they're a point of no return kind of deal. So then you don't have to go through the level upwards of 6 times, maybe you just need to go through it like 3 times total, which is nowhere near as much. On our second visit, this room actually has enemies in it, but we also need to look around because Mo is somewhere lost in the current, and talking to him's how we get to our next thing. My head's spinning. I don't feel so good. I found a strange cave. Aren't I awesome? So, wanna go? Sure, buddy. And just leave it to me. I'll take you there. Ugh. I know that feeling. I get very easily motion sick. So by and large, this section is pretty similar to the last time we saw this tile set in an actual platforming section. We gotta get ourselves around some lava. Now, thankfully, when you're just Starfy like this, you can take hits from the lava and not get sent back to the start of a room, but be careful of your HP all the same. Something I should note, though, the fireball enemies, they do count for your picture book, and I think you do actually have to, like, strike 1 down to get them in. I think they're not ones that you just get by seeing, so make sure to hit at least 1 of them, and you'll be good on that. Also, something I don't think I've mentioned yet about Starfy's controls is that when you run with him, he does the Mario Brothers and Super Mario Brothers 3 Mario World thing where he'll run over 1 tile gaps, no problem, if you just hold left or right over them. It's 2 tile gaps you actually need to jump around, so watch out for that, but also keep that in mind because you can use that to make some sections technically not platforming and just a run forward into a bigger jump. This tile set, though, kind of plays into what I was talking about earlier, where I really feel like the game would have felt a little better in post-game, where instead of every level having several sealed block doors, there's just 1 close to the start that leads to essentially an entire secondary level where all of the treasure chests for that level are, or at least maybe half of them. So you don't have to worry about searching out the same level design 6 times. It's only like maybe 3 times per half of the stage. I think that would feel a little better, and that would allow them to use tile sets like that to a better endpoint, I think, than where they are now, where sometimes they're just used for like 3 rooms at most. So with that, only 1 treasure remains in this stage, and it's at the boss fight, so let's go see Blanturn again. Blanturn's one that actually gets kind of an annoying change in the later half of the boss fight, but we'll talk more about that after this cutscene.
It looks like you managed to find all the treasure around here. However, I've hidden away the treasure that I found, so you're wasting your time.
So Blanturn from memory has 3 overall changes. For one thing, now whenever you strike him when all 3 Blancos are available, they instead all charge at you after a moment instead of just going wherever they were and then heading off screen. Most of the Blancos' moving patterns are based off the end of the first fight on the whole as well. But what gets really annoying is the last, I forget if it's the last hit or the last 2 hits, where he'll spawn several Blancos in a row, but they just charge straight at you, and they will go completely off screen. And if they leave the screen, so does their portion of the light. Thankfully, whenever Blanturn does that attack, they do spawn like 7, 8, 9 of them in a row, but you have to actually kite those Blancos around until 3 of them are on screen. The way you do that is by going to a part of the screen and pressing the star spin button. Every time you do a new star spin, those Blancos will change their direction to try and home in on you. It takes some getting used to. It is the last hit looking at this now, by the way. But it's actually a very cool change to the fight that actually adds a little more strategy in where you're going and what your position is, and I like that a lot for a boss fight in this game. I think I kind of wish most of the post-game boss fights got that level of difference. It's only really like 2 or 3 of them that do, and again, they're mostly at the latter half of the game as we're seeing here. So yeah, here we are. We just need to kite them around, continuously spinning until 3 are on screen, and we get the final treasure chest for this level. And with that, I think we're also about halfway through the post-game. I think I forgot to stay silent for that at one point last part, and that's mostly just me getting carried away with what I'm talking about. But with that, I'm gonna need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 12, now that we finished off our duties here in the deep sea, it's time for us to head on over to the sunken ship and go grab the treasures that were dropped over there. See you guys then.